How do you sort out the so-called jargon from real-world practices that work? Do the members of your organization find some business or technology advice utterly confusing? Welcome to Real Talk with Sam Holcman. In this program, we set the record straight, and in terms that business people and technology people can understand. Now, here is your host, Sam Holcman.
Welcome to this edition of Real Talk. I'm Sam Holcman, and the topic for this broadcast happens to be about program and project management post-November 2019. What is 2019, November? The approximate date that most people suggest that COVID began worldwide and caused and continues to cause incredible ripples throughout a number of communities. And specifically, the community that we're addressing in this broadcast is in organizations that are doing project management and program management, and specifically our experience, of course, enterprise architecture and business architecture. And about 18 months ago, we started noticing and actually logging in the quality and the quantity of deliverables that were being produced in the programs and projects that we had the privilege of working with various organizations, both extremely large and, if I could say, modestly of a modest size there in the tens to $100 million range, all the way up to, of course, billions of dollars. And our observations here are quite interesting, and a more direct term is quite disturbing. And that has to do with the skill set that are now required in this hybrid virtual world that I believe we're going to be in for quite some time, if not forever. And what we've done is categorize the various talent categories that are required in these different environments. So let's go back in history to the good old days, what we call line of sight project management. Basically, what was going on was you're sitting around a table or sitting around in an organization, and there is communication that is both spontaneous and planned, face-to-face, eyeball to eyeball, with nothing in between. In other words, no video or audio types of environment involved there, no delay in response. You could actually have visual cues and audio cues if you're observing very well and you're a great project manager. So we call that line of sight management. That virtually disappeared, especially early on in the COVID, when COVID began. And some of you, of course, may have experienced it in other areas, like education, specifically of children, whether they're elementary, junior, high school, or even universities. There was an incredible backlash because what we saw there was no time was taken or no skills were augmented in working in a classroom type of environment, in other words, eyeball to eyeball, versus a virtual environment. So we call that first category essentially line of sight project management. The second category, which works pretty well, is virtual environments in which both audio and video are being used simultaneously. I want to emphasize both audio and video. And we'll get to category 3 and category 4, of course, in just a moment. It works well, different skills involved, different requirements for the facilitator or instructor if it's an educational environment. You just can't do a copy-paste from the classroom environment to this virtual environment, which is virtual in both audio and video. And this, of course, was one of the first things people noticed where educators, teachers, professors, facilitators, all those people just sort of went into this environment without any training or education, and it wasn't, of course, their fault, and said, I'll just use the same materials, the same approaches, the same techniques I was using in the classroom in this virtual environment. We enjoy that environment today. We, as an organization, EACOE and BACOE. We do that extensively. We've modified a lot of our content and approaches, in other words, the skill sets, to accommodate that particular environment. It takes a bit more skill than the classroom environment, but not a lot more, as we'll see in Category 3 and Category 4. What's Category 3? Virtual audio only. No video clues, no understanding, if I can be this direct, of actually who is paying attention, who's actually online versus doing other things. Again, my apologies for being this direct, but we all know what's happening. And it has dramatically affected the quality and the productivity in numerous engagements that we've had the privilege of being involved in. And we need to be very careful as an outsider when we talk to people about this, because it's sort of challenging the environment that's there. And we get an incredible list of reasons why that's the only way to do things. Well, when we hear that, that means we, as the instructor or facilitator, have to be up to that environment, and it is radically different than the first two. It takes a very, very skilled instructor, project manager, facilitator to be in an audio-only environment. The facilitator instructor has to be much more interactive, closed-loop questions that are looking for responses, not something like, are there any questions anyone has? That's not working. It's not going to work. The instructor or the facilitator has to probe a little bit. Joe, can you review some of your materials at this particular point with us? Mary, can we have a discussion about how you're doing on this particular area? In other words, not a passive environment, but an active environment that takes a very strong, skilled facilitator, instructor, project manager, all those categories to be able to do this. And the fourth one is extremely difficult, and I like to call that a monologue environment. And a monologue environment is email only. No interaction going on. It's something is sent, something comes back, something is back, and something comes back. If I could ban an environment in the project and program management world, especially in enterprise and business architecture, it would be that one, if I had the strength to be able to ban that one. It has been very ineffective. And we've actually gone into organizations when they proposed that to us and suggested very humbly that that isn't the type of business that we are comfortable with. We actually turn those down. It's not a good idea to take bad business, especially when you know there's a high probability it is going to be bad. So in summary, we have the easiest approach to project management, not saying it's easy, by the way, especially with enterprise or business architecture, and that would be a face-to-face, eyeball-to-eyeball environment where everyone is in the same physical room or same physical building. Doesn't have to be in the same physical room by any means all the time, but there is the ability to have impromptu and formal conversations when required. Second approach is video and audio virtual environments where the participants, some may be in a meeting room, some may be all in environments that are in their home or in an office. They're not together with other folks, or all virtual. Again, the emphasis is fully interactive and on all the time, virtual environments with video and audio. Category number 3, where the skills dramatically of the facilitator or instructor need to be increased, is the audio-only format. And finally, the fourth one, which we would not recommend at all, which is what we call the monologue format, where there's an exchange of emails as required. So when you're thinking about the programs and projects that you're doing, and you've seen issues that have popped up, especially since November 2019 Take a look at the skills of your project and program management. Take a look at the content that is being provided to you, the methodologies, and see if they are tuned to the environment that you're in today. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Talk. Be sure to join your host, Sam Holcman, again for another edition of our program. We'll have more real topics of discussion then.